All right, everybody, welcome to our second night of our Radical Hope. We're so excited to have you all join us once again. And for those of you that don't know me, I'm Wendy Myers. I'm one of the senior clinical managers at Cancer Bridges. And we're really excited to have this series, presented to you. We did this a few years ago and it went really well. And now we're doing it secondly. And so we're really excited to have Deborah Nozick back. For those of you that were not on the call last week, we have Deborah here tonight. And we have also one of our favorite parts is our survivors, right? Are the people that are here that are the radical remission stories. So we have 8 incredible people tonight with a lot of great stories. And if we can have everybody please mute just because we are recording and that would be awesome. We appreciate it. All right, I'm going to toss this over to my wonderful colleague, Jennifer Cam.
Hello, everyone. If you were here last week, you know that this is the book Radical Hope. If you haven't had the chance to read it, I don't know why we're having some reverb, but so we are raffling off another book tonight. So I think Mia is going to create a wheel, and so we're going to put everybody that attends tonight, put their name in the wheel. And then we'll mail that to you once you win. Just a few tips of housekeeping. We are recording tonight, so what we're going to try to do, how the flow will happen is Deborah Nozick, who is here from Radical Hope, she'll talk a little bit, and then we have 8 remarkable stories tonight. So it is going to take some time, and we have 10 minutes per person. Talia, who is our wonderful intern from the University of Pittsburgh, is going to introduce each person. We do have a couple speakers that have to leave early, but for the most part, we wanted to hold all of our questions for later, for after everyone has shared their story. If you would like to put a question in the chat, you're welcome to do that. And then if, perhaps if you have to leave early, they might be able to answer it later. With that, I'm just going to turn it over because we have a great night ahead of us. I would like to introduce Deborah Nozick. If you weren't with us last week, she could share a little bit of her personal experience. She is a metastatic breast cancer survivor for I think 25 years, or it's been a remarkable amount of time, and she has been certified by the Radical Hope team. And so, she's just going to say a few things, and then we will turn it over to Talia to introduce each story.
Okay, can everybody hear me okay? I'm in Albany, New York right now, frigid Albany, and thank you so much for having me with you in Pittsburgh. I suspect you're experiencing a lot of what we're experiencing here, but spring is around the corner. There is hope. So if you hadn't been here last week or 5 years ago when I was with you, I am a metastatic breast cancer survivor diagnosed in 1999 with a whole lung full of inoperable breast cancer tumors. And I had my own personal journey to get well and stay well, and found out when the book Radical Remission came out in 2014 by Dr. Kelly Turner. And that is, Dr. Kelly Turner did research for her doctoral dissertation that became that book, Radical Remission. She asked, I can't remember how many, like 1,000 people, what did you do, or what do you believe you did that helped you to get well? People that reversed their stage 4 cancers. And then she used that and kind of siphoned down like 10 different factors, healing factors. And it turned out I did not have that as a roadmap when I was first diagnosed. But when I read the book, I realized, oh my goodness, I just intuitively kind of did a lot of the things that she wrote about in the book Radical Remission, that then she expanded into Radical Hope, which is what we're going to talk about tonight. A couple disclaimers that I shared last week for the people who were with us, that these factors are not a cure for cancer. So I don't want to give the impression if you do blah, 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 it's an automatic cure for cancer. What it is, though, is just ways of living, ways of being that instill wellness in people, instill improved immune systems. And there's a very strong correlation between our immune system and what goes on with all different kinds of autoimmune diseases and cancers and all kinds of illnesses. So I guess that's just the thumbnail. I gave my story last week, and I'm very pleased to be here today. If I can be helpful in any way, what I'm planning to do is listen to all of you wonderful survivors in Pittsburgh and hear your stories. I'm so anxious to hear your stories. It just makes my heart sing when I hear people's stories. And then what I'm going to do is, while I'm listening, I've got my paper here. I'm just going to jot down some notes of what I'm hearing you say. And I will do a little bit of reflection after each of you speak, just to kind of point out, oh, I think I'm hearing you do blah, blah regarding the 10 different factors that are in radical remission and radical hope. I'll go through them really quick. And there is no particular order to these factors. There's no, in terms of what things you do first, second, or third, there just are. So there's radically changing our diet, empowering ourselves, following our intuitions, using herbs and supplements, releasing suppressed emotions, increasing positive emotions, embracing social support, deepening our own personal spiritual connections, really having a strong reason or reasons for living. And then with Radical Hope, we added in exercise and movement as another healing factor. So I think I'm going to just keep it to that long, because I can't wait to hear what everybody has to say. And it's great to be with you tonight.
And right before we move over to Talia to introduce the speakers, I just wanted to share that it's a little technically challenging to just spotlight. We try not to get everybody in the recording, so I may have to pause at times. But I think I figured it out. We'll try. I don't know. Go ahead, Talia.
All right, so our first speaker is Scott. He is a retired geophysicist, having worked over 40 years in the oil and gas industry, both domestically and internationally. He is happily married with 2 grown sons. He will share his experience with pancreatic cancer.
Thanks, Talia. And thanks for giving me this opportunity to share my story. As she said, my name is Scott Gorham, and this is my wife, Susan. I'm a 69-year-old grandpa who was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer about 1.5 years ago. My journey really started about 2 years ago when I noticed I had a sore belly button. The diagnosis was that I had a cyst, which ultimately resulted in its surgical removal. Unfortunately, part of the removed tissue turned out to be cancerous. This condition, known as Sister Mary Joseph's nodule, is a metastatic lesion of the umbilicus. The most common sources of metastasis come from the stomach, ovaries, colon, etc. However, 7 to 9% of the time, this comes from the pancreas. After an MRI and several CAT scans, I was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer, which was confirmed by an endoscopic retrieval of an actual sample of the tumor. Soon afterwards, a port was installed in my chest, and I was put on a 6-month chemotherapy regimen, starting with FOLFIRINOX. Unfortunately, I'm one of a small percentage of patients who end up with chemo-induced vasospasms, which put me in the hospital for several days. These feel like mini heart attacks, which occur every half hour for about 8 hours. 3 weeks later, FOLFIRINOX was tried again, coupled with a drug designed to dilate my arteries. Unfortunately, this met with similar results. So I was then put on a combination of Braxine and gemcitabine for the remainder of the 6 months. Needless to say, I had many unpleasant side effects during this period, but was still able to participate in a helpful 2-month AHN exercise program. After a final PET scan that confirmed that my tumor had not grown nor metastasized, it was decided that I would benefit from surgery to remove the tumor, including the lower half of my pancreas and spleen. Surgery for a patient with stage 4 pancreatic cancer is somewhat unusual, so I was very pleased with this decision. Unfortunately, a laparoscopic exam immediately before my surgery revealed cancerous lesions on my peritoneum, so the surgery was canceled. I was then put on a maintenance chemo regimen of gemcitabine, which I've been on now for almost a year. I have CAT scans every 3 months, and to date, the tumor has not grown, nor has it visibly metastasized in any other organ. During this time, I've been able to live a relatively normal life, balancing infusions and the resulting fatigue with an active lifestyle that has included travel, concerts, racket sports, etc. However, when the chemo regimen shows that it is no longer able to prevent the cancer from progressing, I will pursue clinical trial options. I'll turn it over to my wife.
Hi, I'm Susan, Scott's wife. So Scott has been very fortunate in that his health has not changed substantially since his diagnosis. He no longer has a belly button, but he's learned to deal with that. He does have chemo-induced neuropathy in his toes and a port in his shoulder that can be uncomfortable at times. But he has been able to maintain a fairly stable weight, and he continues to play tennis as well as enjoy other physical activities that he enjoys. Even his hair has come back, although a little more thin and whiter, but he has maintained his great sense of dry humor. He's a great comedian once you get to know him. Okay. Significant lifestyle adjustments have included eliminating sugar as much as possible, as well as reducing his alcohol consumption to a sip maybe here and there. He doesn't have much energy for a couple of days after his infusion, but he has increased his reading and other more passive activities. His digestive system is slightly compromised, so he is careful about what and how he eats these days. He does maintain a log of his cancer-related events as well as a spreadsheet of related expenses, which, as I'm sure you're well aware, keeps growing. One way that I support him is by attending all his doctor and Cancer Bridges meetings. I also support PanCan as a captain of a Purple Stride fundraising team, which last year, first time we walked, finished third. By raising close to or more than $18,000. We will be walking again this year if anyone wants to come join us. More importantly, I help Scott maintain a healthy and active lifestyle and a positive lifestyle. We recently returned home from a 6-day trip to the Florida Keys, and we have plans to go biking in the Italian Dolomites this summer. Back to you.
Thanks, Susan. I've gone through various phases of grief, but now accept my situation for what it is. I try to be my own advocate. I maintain a healthy diet, remain physically active as much as possible, and maintain an optimistic approach. I've read books like Radical Remission and Radical Hope, and have participated in therapy sessions to help improve my coping strategies. I acknowledge that my cancer may shorten my life, but I'm determined for as long as possible not to let it erode my quality of life, nor the lives of those around me. Although chemo seems to be working for me now, I realize that this could change at any time. I have another CAT scan in 4 days, which may initiate this change. I'm also aware that only 4.5% of pancreatic cancer patients enroll in a clinical trial. And I want to ensure that I am able to participate in a trial to help the advancement of science. UPMC ensured that a genetic analysis of my tumor was conducted, which should be helpful for identifying a clinical trial specific to my particular type of cancer. I've taken a proactive approach to improve my odds when it comes to clinical trials. Although my cancer care to date has been all through UPMC, I've registered my data with other local centers such as AHN and university hospitals in Cleveland. I've also visited and shared my data with a few world-class cancer centers, including MD Anderson in Houston and Dana-Farber in Boston. These are areas where I have family or friends, which would facilitate a long-term stay if necessary. I've also tested the PanCan Clinical Trial Finder software, which should be useful when I start the process. That being said, I've been very impressed with the care that UPMC has provided and want to thank everyone there involved in my care. They certainly belong with the top centers for cancer care. I plan for success, knowing that I would not want to live my life any other way. I know I'm the beneficiary of modern science, as well as many prayers and good karma from family and friends. And I'm very grateful that I'm still alive. As always, there are silver linings to any challenging situation. My situation has enabled me to better appreciate each day and the time I share with loved ones. I've been blessed with wonderful support from my wife, as well as the rest of my family and friends, and I look forward to a long run with good quality of life for the rest of my cancer journey. Thank you.
Okay. So you'd like me to pop on? Okay. Wow.
Sure.
Wow. Oh my gosh, I've got goosebumps right now, Scott. And Susan, you've gone through so much in such a brief period of time. And when you first introduced yourself as a grandfather, automatically I'm thinking, boy, does that man have a lot of reasons for living. Right away, that just saying I'm a 68-year-old grandfather, that just popped right out there. And as you were giving your story, there were so many different facets of the radical mission, radical hope. You know, you talked about a lot of resilience, you know, in terms of everything that you had to, you know, do in order to deal with this, and a tremendous amount of resilience, and being very open to looking at all of your different options, getting the best quality medical people, even going as far as, you know, other big centers like Dana-Farber and some other places that you mentioned, being open to possibilities like clinical trials, and at the same time maintaining as full a life as you can possibly. There you are. You just switched on me. As full a life as you can possibly have, with travel and staying physically active and having tremendous amounts of support. You can just see it in your relationship with your wife, Susan, and allowing other people's prayers, you know, accepting their prayers and their support, doing some modifications in your own eating, eliminating sugar and minimizing just a little bit of alcohol. So you kind of really kind of brought that factor into your life too. So you really, you know, and then intuitively just kind of taking yourself through step by step by step. And the last thing I just want to say in hearing your story is, you know, keeping your optimism going, you know, being open to possibilities again, you know, not taking this as a death sentence, that, you know, don't look at the statistics. We're all our own outlier, and, you know, you're just doing everything you can to live your life to the fullest now, and hopefully for a long time to come. So I don't know, did I catch your story pretty accurately?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Yep. Did I miss anything important?
Yeah.
Nope,
Did a good job. Good job.
Okay. All right.
All right, thank you. We'll go, I'll unpin you, and then we go back over to Talia. Let's get over there. Whoops. Oh shoot.
I don't know how to, can we like
Okay.
go on? Put something.
All right. Our next speaker is Anne, a native of Pittsburgh. Anne has been involved with Cancer Bridges for the past 8 years as a cancer thriver and recent board member. She has worked with area nonprofits and administration, sharing her grant writing skills. She's the proud mom of Elena, a college student and soon-to-be teacher. Welcome, Anne. Just make sure you unmute.
Where is Anne? Let's see. Oh, Anne, there's
You're muted, Anne. You could sometimes just press your space button. Space bar? No? Our next speaker is Kara Snyder, who is just a wonderful thriver and was diagnosed while she was pregnant with her second son. And then 364 days after that it became metastatic. And she has traveled through a tremendous amount. And so I turn it over to Kara to share her story.
Well, hello, everyone. So as Jen said, my journey started when I was diagnosed with early stage triple negative breast cancer in 2018 while I was pregnant with our second son. I gave birth to him 3 weeks early after a natural induction. I'm still very proud of that. Before cancer, I rarely relied on medications. Hearing that I would have to go on chemotherapy and the associated pre-meds and the prescribed post-meds was really tough for me to accept. It still is. I was always a very healthy person and exercised almost daily, especially in the years leading up to the cancer diagnosis. I was deeply saddened by this news, but promised myself that I would always try my hardest to get through this for myself and for my loved ones. I got 1 week with my son Jesse before I had to get scans, go for multiple tests, get my port placed, which I named Andy after my chemo nurse, who was amazing. I started chemo when he was just 3 weeks old. I missed out on so much with him. I had to stop breastfeeding him to go through 21 weeks of chemotherapy. I couldn't even do skin to skin time with him since I was taking IV chemo. I was on a trial for immunotherapy drug and getting IV radioactive contrast dyes with scans. So I didn't get to bond with him like I did with my older son. So that was really hard for me to accept as well. I then had to have breast surgery and do 5 weeks of breast radiation, all with a newborn and a toddler. A few weeks after, wait, hold on. A few weeks after I completed breast radiation, I started having trouble with my left foot. I began tripping and stumbling quite often. I then lost use of my left leg altogether. A trip to the ER showed a large tumor in my brain. It was almost a year from the original diagnosis, only a few days before our son's first birthday. We were all devastated. I couldn't have brain surgery because the tumor was millimeters away from the motor cortex, risking hemiparesis. We needed to shrink it first. They recommended 3 sessions of stereotactic radiosurgery radiation, SRS, followed by oral chemo. The oral chemo put me in the hospital after just the first, not even a full cycle. I was in the hospital for 7 days and it took 2 months to recover. We finished up the radio radiation afterwards, and while the tumor did shrink, it came back a few months later, and in April of 2020, I had my first brain surgery to remove the tumor. 5 weeks after that pesky tumor grew back, we then did further localized radiation with 5 gamma knife sessions. And during the radiation, I started having seizures. And after some smaller ones, I ended up with having a grand mal seizure when I woke up on the floor in my living room with a paramedic on top of me. And he told me that I had turned blue, which was very scary for my toddler to be whisked out of the room so that he didn't have to see it all. And I also had to surrender my driver's license, which was also very hard to deal with because that takes away your freedom. And I was so used to being able to like take my kids out on adventures, and I was no longer able to do that. So we had to just do like walking like adventures, like to the local park and like to the local coffee shop. But I really wanted to be able to take them to like the science center and the children's museum and all that fun stuff. And I end up having to find somebody who can help support us with rides and childcare because I was going for treatment every Monday. And then all the other stuff that comes with treatment, like the scans and the doctor's appointments and the specialists and the PT and OT and that kind of stuff. So it was a lot of stuff where I felt like I lost out a lot on my children growing up. And a few days before my son's first birthday, I was tripping and I was diagnosed with the metastatic breast cancer in the brain. And like that was, I think I already talked about that. Sorry. I'm like a little bit all over the place here. I ended up having to have a second brain surgery in January of 2021, 9 months after my first brain surgery. And it caused a severe impairment on my left side. And I lost the ability to walk, use my dominant hand and arm, and care for myself. So I had to rely on like my husband walk me to the bathroom. He told me I would never walk again. So I had to like rehab really, really hard to get to where I am now. And that was in 2021. So 4 years later, I am walking with a cane after many doctors told me I never would. And when I was diagnosed with the brain metastasis, my doctor gave me 3 months to live in 2019. And then we also, like Scott, we also went and to MD Anderson and did Hopkins and Duke. And out of the blue, we had a doctor call us one day. I didn't even have an appointment with him. He just saw my scans from up in Pittsburgh, and he gave me 6 to 8 weeks to live when I was sitting home alone, and said that if I don't go down there every week for a trial, that I would die. And I just was like, that's, that doesn't work for me. I have these small kids, and who calls somebody that they haven't seen in a year and gives them that news? So from that point forward, I said, I will never allow somebody to give me an expiration date. They're not God. Just because they have a medical degree does not give them the permission to tell you that your life is ending. So I do a lot of advocating for myself now. And after that call, I went onto my MD Anderson portal and canceled any future appointment I had because I was never going back there. So some of the things that I did since getting diagnosed was I had an extremely strong yoga practice. And even after my first brain surgery, I was still able to do yoga. And I just added in Reiki, massage, um, craniosacral therapy. I also got Reiki certified myself, so I can do Reiki on myself. My husband did too. So we can do Reiki on each other and we can do Reiki on our kids. So that was really an intentional thing to help. And we did a lot of drum therapy with other thrivers and um, did like sound bowls. And I have a huge crystal collection that I really believe in their healing powers. And I do a lot of search, and I share my story on social media so that other people can see that even though it's a challenging thing, you can get through it. And we're all strong and brave just getting out the door to go to these appointments and treatment. It's it's not for the weak. And we have proven that we are strong every day that we get up out of bed. And I have turned my wanting to help people into bigger things where I was a co-founder of a breast cancer organization to help women who were going through this. And I was able to help a lot of people in that aspect. And then I also enjoyed cooking before I lost use. So right now, this is the amount of movement I have in my left arm. But before this, I was able to cook healthy meals, vegan meals for people, which brought me so much joy, and for other cancer patients. And it was me finding a community. I didn't find a community when I was first diagnosed early stage, till I was like, I found Jen Kem's group and I was able to go, I think it was like I had one treatment left or two treatments left. And I finally found that community and it was awesome to have that. And I think having a community is so important. And to know that there are other people that are going through similar things that you can empower and they can empower you. And I like to find the joy in little things to like help me like keep moving forward and to believe in yourself. I think that's a very important one is to believe in yourself. Because if you don't, like there's no way you're gonna like get yourself motivated to continue your journey. Um, I enjoy spending time with my friends and family. My family and I, we plan a few trips a year. This year we've been to Lake Erie, we go to every summer. It's such a fabulous place to sit on the beach and just listen to the water and see the kids have so much fun playing. And we always pick two cities to explore a year. So this year we did Detroit and we also did Ithaca, New York. So just you don't have to stop life. You can still live. And that's kind of been my mantra this whole time is I have two of them, that one, and then together we all have our mountains to climb, but together we'll reach our peaks.
Mm. Mm.
That's beautiful,
So,
Sarah.
thank you.
Oh, thank you, Kara. Wow. Wow. No wonder you were specified as a thriver. You know, the fact that you would not allow a doctor to give you an expiration date, that was huge. That you just empowered yourself and was able to just get through so much. And again, very, very strong reasons for living. having your two sons and loved ones, really kind of rallied that, sounds like, inside of you for, I want to be here. I want to experience my boys growing up.
Mm-hmm.
Only experience, but make a happy life for them. Look at all the different things that you've been doing through the years to give them a lot of happy memories. All the trips you've been taking. And then you also have that within yourself to want to give to others, and yet you got your organization going, and you also embraced support coming from others. And I'm into all that energy stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of, like I said, you go girl. I'm personally, too much information, but I'm really big on all the energy work, because there's no way we're ever going to know for sure how and why it helps people. But anecdotally, I happen to know it seems to help people a lot. And you and your husband both getting into Reiki and giving that to each other, what a loving thing to do for and with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And you were into physical movement and activity. You kept up with your yoga, and things that you love, like cooking and eating healthy. So you've really been doing, a lot with that's what I love about the Radical Remission and Radical Hope books. People don't realize how many things they're already doing. It doesn't have to be prescribed. It's just, you're just doing it. So keep up the good work.
Thank you. And I think it's also important to know that you can overcome things. So I'm left-handed. I do everything right-handed now. So I had to learn how to write right-handed, brush my teeth, brush my hair, do everything that I wasn't used to doing with that hand.
Yeah, which shows so much resilience on your part too.
Yeah.
To be able to do that.
And then I have a couple people who broke a finger or something, and they're like, "How did you do this?" It's been 4 years since I can't use my hands. So like it's something I'm always so proud of myself for. And I think that you have to have pride in yourself as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you can't love yourself, how you just have to love yourself and believe that you can do whatever you set your mind to. So
yeah, you can't really give to others unless you love yourself first. Yeah, you really figure that out for yourself. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, ladies. We will move up pin Talia.
All right, we are going back to Anne. She is a native of Pittsburgh, and she has been involved with Cancer Bridges for the past 8 years as a cancer thriver and recent board member. She has worked with area nonprofits and administration, sharing her grant writing skills. She's the proud mom of Elena, a college student and soon-to-be teacher. Welcome, Anne.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yay. Okay, can you see me now?
Yes.
Yay. Okay, thank you, Lord. Okay, thanks for your patience too. So, okay, I'd like to start out by saying that the Radical Hope book has just made a wonderful difference in my life. I was here 5 years ago when this same topic was presented, and I thought, I can do that. I can do that. So have really, the book spurred me to action. So here we go. So my cancer journey began in 2003, 22 years ago. I was in my late 30s and found a marble-sized lump in my breast while I was in the shower. And it was confirmed as early stage breast cancer. And it was ER positive, HER2 negative, the most common type of breast cancer. But I thought, how could this be? I was in the midst of this great career with Marriott Hotels. I was way too young for this. And, I thought, is my life over, basically? I always wanted to be a mom and had lost my first husband in my 20s to lung cancer and thought, I'm going to do this on my own, right now. So had applied to an international adoption agency to adopt a little girl from Guatemala, and then got the diagnosis. So I really feel that, God has been a huge part of this journey, and that there have been different holy moments along the way where people have stepped up and said, okay, it's going to be okay. So my first holy moment occurred when the social worker said to me, God has a plan for your life. You're going to get through this, and you're going to raise your daughter. And this girl was like 2 months old at the time, the girl that they were trying to place for adoption. And there are so many threads in my story that connects to the healing factor of spiritual connections. I think that's the biggest one for me. And the scripture that's become my mantra, and it may be familiar to you, is, "For I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord, plans to give you hope and a future." And that has come through again and again. So Elena came home when she was almost a year old, after I had done 6 months worth of treatment. So I had to kind of wait for her to come home, and did chemo, radiation, and had a lumpectomy. But life was good. And for the next 15 years, we, as a single mom, I raised her, and experiencing all the joy and challenges that you do as parents, as far as that goes. So 15 years later, in 2018, I was doing a standard scan, and found out that it had come back. So 15 years later, like, what's up with that? Does this stuff, stay dormant in us, or, what is it? So I knew that this time I kind of had to approach it in a different way. It had metastasized into my lung, several bones, the calvarium, the skull bone here, and the femur, and the spine. So we were in a whole different, ballpark there. So they did a biopsy to confirm at McGee that it was metastatic. They did a biopsy right behind the collarbone, and did confirm that it was the same type of cancer. At this point, I reached out to the Cancer Caring Center when it was that, sat with Wendy in the office. I'll never forget the green couch, okay, that was there. This has been almost 7 years ago now, and just being understood, another truly holy moment. And Wendy helped me to realize that this was not a beginning, this was a beginning and not the end, basically. So that was there. But my intuition was telling me, not to bash standard of care or conventional medicine, but I think we need to do both. And so I started down the holistic path, having one leg in the standard of care conventional, and the other leg in the holistic. Found a place called Ann Wigmore Natural Health Institute in Puerto Rico, and spent 2 glorious weeks down there on the beach, basically getting to know myself and beginning to heal. So we took classes on plant-based eating, which I ended up becoming a plant-based person for years to come, which made a big difference there in the diagnosis and everything. We would do yoga on the beach every morning, and just talking with like-minded women from all over the world. It was just such an empowering experience. Only 2 months after that, I came back as NEAD, no evidence of active disease. And I really feel that had a, big difference. And I still was on Ibrance at the time, so I was still on a standard care of treatment. And I went to my doctor and said, okay, you're saying I have no active disease, then why am I still on this medication? So she told me I could take a holiday, okay, off of the medication. And so I was off. I said, we're going to take a leap of faith and do this. So I was off the medication for 9 months, feeling amazing, just so good, and everything with that. Unfortunately, at 10 months, it came back. So one more time. This time, I started going through the standard lines of treatment while still doing the holistic stuff as well. So I went through Ibrance, Verzenio, Afinitor, Xeloda, and then finally a clinical trial. So Shadyside had offered a local clinical trial that sounded so promising. And I'm like, okay, let's do it. So they actually took a radiopharmaceutical, created a liquid that went directly, like an IV, matched up my protein for the cancer to the radiopharmaceutical and injected it in your body. So, and it makes it go to the specific bones where the metastasis occurred. So pretty science fiction, stuff here, but really excited about it. I had one treatment, and unfortunately it had a lot of bone pain that became associated with it. And I ended up having my calcium went out of control, the electrolytes, and ended up in the hospital. So, but thinking back, I think I would have done it again. I think clinical trials have so much value. And, so my knowledge or what happened with me is in that clinical trial. So hopefully it doesn't happen to another person. But we were back to another crossroads, okay, of, what to do next. And I swore that I would never do chemo again, just because it was so hard the first time and all of that. But then a friend said to me, another one of those holy moments, please think about the chemo, Ann. There's a lot of people that have success with it. So there was a new drug called Enhertu, pretty standard in the MBC world. And so I decided to go for it. So I've now had 6 treatments of Enhertu, and it's working. So my tumor markers are down over 300 to 400 points, almost normal right now, thanks be to God. And as far as that goes, so, and then it's pulled back when it was in the lung, it's much smaller. So I'm praying that this will continue to work as far as that goes. Yes. So I wanted to mention too, just sometimes in reaching out to Cancer Bridges that were pivotal for me and Elena. There was a time where I had to have radiation to the calvarium, to the skull bone here. Elena had just finished a year of school, and she came home and I said, guess what? I'm starting radiation. And she hugged me and cried and said, Mom, I don't want you to die. Now to hear that from your child, it's just going to be all kinds of emotions. But I called Jen and got in with Abby the next day, and Abby sat with Elena and I and said, look, let's look at this here. Do you look okay? Do you feel okay? And just made it so practical that it was pivotal in changing where we were going and in our relationship. And I was always so afraid to share the bad news with our kids or with Elena and things like that, but found out that they can take it, they understand. So that was very pivotal to what I did there. So here we are, almost 7 years out metastatic, but 22 years from the original diagnosis. And I just keep going back to, those holy moments that I've had with, Jen and Wendy and all these amazing people that God seems to put in my life. And that also just intimately, recently I was sure that it had metastasized to my brain. You get a headache and you're like, something's wrong, And so they did an MRI, and I was laying in the tube, as we're all very familiar with these tubes, thinking what's going on. And it felt just the most overwhelming peace come over me. So, and again, going back to that, that spiritual connection is so, so important. So I think I continue to remember that every day I have a choice to walk in fear or to walk in faith. And, hopefully most days you choose fear. There are other days where you're in that fetal position, thinking what's next. But hopefully I continue to choose faith. And I hope that all of you do as well. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank
Wow.
you.
So Anne, your faith and your holy moments have just been keeping you going and keeping you going and keeping you going, and being able to take all the different changes that you had to make at every juncture to help you figure out, what do I do next, and what do I do next, and what do I do next, and having that strong reason for living again, about wanting to be a mom and doing what it took to become a mom, and being with Elena
Yes.
all these and seeing her to a young adulthood, right?
She'll graduate next year as a teacher in special education.
Wow. Yeah.
So, yeah.
So your determination and your reasons for living, again, so strong. And again, you're another giver too, that you've gone through what you've been going through and want to pay it forward by being like on the board. And also you also took in help from those, who care about you, and you asked for help when you needed it.
Yes.
Yeah. And you've been doing it, you've been doing it for all these years. And the fact again that you keep that positive outlook.
Thank you.
Through your faith, that helps a lot. And that you had that incredible experience on the beach, and how lifting that was for your spirit.
I just think that, it's just incredible what the body can do to heal,
Yeah.
And for all of us, it's connecting to that thing that's most important, for us. And it's not always physical,
And the body, I think you're right, Ann. And the body wants to heal itself.
Yes.
And so when we do a lot of these different things, we're, just that inner peace you were talking about, it actually helps the body do what it needs to do.
Yes.
To heal itself.
Definitely. So thanks for listening.
All right, let's head back over to Talia, and we will.
Let's see.
And we have Ken. It's coming up.
All right. So Ken was diagnosed with inoperable pancreatic cancer in 2012 with a survival rate of less than 5%. Some of you may know Ken as he's a valued volunteer at our front desk every Wednesday.
Hi, pleasure to be here with everyone. This is my wife, Becky,
Hi.
who shared this journey every step of the way, all the way back in 2012. When I was first diagnosed with inoperable pancreatic cancer, I was an avid walker and exerciser. I ate right. In fact, I only missed 3 days of power walking in 10 years. And I was in pretty healthy shape. And what had happened was I was having this pain in my upper abdomen, And at the time when I was walking, there was a park down the road, and I would stop and do some pull-ups as I walked. And I was in my mid-50s at the time. I thought, well, maybe it's not a good idea for me to be doing pull-ups. I thought I pulled a muscle. And Becky noticed me starting to lose weight and getting kind of sick. And she said, "Look, you need to go see the doctor." So I did. I went to the doctor, and he said that I had did some tests and that my diabetes was off the charts. He said, your sugar's just crazy high, so I'm going to put you on some insulin. I was fine with that. I came home and I told my wife, who is way smarter than me. She said, well, you eat right, you exercise. There's no reason in the world for you to have diabetes. I'm going to make an appointment for you to see an endocrinologist. I was, okay, what's that? What's an endocrinologist? So she did. And then eventually I got in there and I explained to her the symptoms I was having. And she said, well, I don't like the signs of this. And so she sent me right over to Shady Side for a CT scan. And on the way back from the scan, the phone rang. And of course, it was her. She was on the phone. She says, hey, you need to come up to the office, So we knew right there it wasn't going to be a good thing, So we get up to the office and I go in, and in the little window where all the nurses are, they're talking and having a good time. I said, hi, I'm Mr. Parmy, and everybody stopped. And they just stared at the ground. I thought, oh my, that's not a good sign, So we went in, and the doctor, she was just wonderful. She explained to us what it was, and her name was Dr. Levitt. She was up in, she's down at the Folk Clinic now, but she had just been a fellow over at the Hillman, and she was specializing in pancreatis things. So she had the doctors all lined up, who we were supposed to see, where we were supposed to go. And they had me in there on a Friday, and Monday they put the port in and they started. And I had pretty much the same regimen as Scott for a year. I did the 4 months of for Fluranox, that 5-FU. And then I had to do the Gem Star and Gesenabine. I did that for about 8 months and through a whole year of chemo. And then they had this newfangled radiation they had just come out with that a lot of insurance wouldn't even cover because they considered it experimental at the time. But my insurance did, and I'm grateful because I believe this kept me alive, even though it beat me up pretty good. It's I think it stopped that tumor because after a year of chemo and then those radiation sessions with the cyberknife radiation, the tumor just never shrunk. It stayed blocking my bile duct and it never shrunk. The goal was to remove it. But what I didn't know at the time was because that radiation was so new, the two guys that had it before me, when they removed their tumor, they did real well with it, but then they both died in their sleep because the radiation was so radical that the stitches didn't hold in the veins, and so their veins broke and they bled out. And I probably should have been one of those people. If my tumor would have shrunk, I actually would have been one of those guys. So they came to me afterwards and told me what was happening and said, so we're definitely not going to try any kind of an operation. They said, but here's the deal. We can't do anything else. We've given you all the chemo that your body can take, the radiation, which if you move that up to the day, that radiation, it burned my inside so bad that I'm going to have an operation to where they can bypass my small intestines because they're so scarred that the food can't go down and get through. I have to eat real soft foods now in real small portions. So they put me on a TPN program, which is actually helping to keep me alive because I can't keep that weight on. I can't seem to be able to eat enough to keep the weight on. So this TPN is helping me get that nutrition that I can't get from the food. But even though that radiation did that, I believe it really did stop that tumor from spreading or growing because, like I say, this was all the way back now. And now it's like 2013. So that's a long time to be living with inoperable pancreatic cancer. And I'm at the point now where I have more physical problems from the treatments than actually from the cancer itself. But I'd be dead without those treatments. So I'm certainly not ungrateful. You know, my wife has, she's been through me through every step of the way with this. I have every chemo and everything. The only thing she can't do is play chess. She takes too long. I said, I'm dying here. You got to move before I die.
That's true. That's a true story. Yeah, it's true. Hi, I'm Becky. I'm Kenny's wife. I think through everything, Kenny's a very positive person. I think that's something that attracted me to him 48 years ago when we were dating. But and his life has changed a lot because of this cancer. He did have to go on disability insurance, so he had to stop working, and that was hard for him. And I think it upset him that I had to keep working even when he was retired. But thank God I'm retired now. But his life has definitely changed. And in the last the last 3 or 4 years, I've seen a decline in Kenny because of all the scar tissue and whatnot. And he's adjusted to every change. He's been able to adjust, and he keeps his positive attitude. And he writes songs and he sketches and he goes out to cancer bridges and he volunteers, and he's since he's been sick, we have 6 grandchildren in total, and now we have a great grandchild. And we know that treatment kept Kenny alive. Yeah. We know it did. Yeah. But I think he has been such a testimony to our family and, of course, our friends and everybody he meets. But the way our kids have seen him deal with this, accept this. I hate to say accept, but he did. It is what it is. He had what he has, and it's changed his life. But he's not turned into a grumpy person. He's not turned into a fearful, bitter, angry person.
He's been able to, maintain his faith. He's been able to stay a positive person and like roll with the punches and do what he needs to do. So, and I think that has helped him so much through all this. And like I said, it's really been a testimony to our family.
And I'm pretty adaptable, but I've had such good support. Like Becky's saying, all the kids and grandkids, everybody just really pitches in and becomes such a support in times like that. And it means a lot, I was for PanCan for 5 years for them. I was the Pittsburgh advocacy chair, and we would go down every year to Congress and we would lobby the Senate and the Congress for finances for research funding for pancreatic cancer. And the last year we went on, we had people representing every state.
Yeah.
Actually showed up. But after that, COVID hit. So we don't do that kind of a thing anymore because it's way expensive for one thing, And, but every 6 months now, I have to go in, I have to have a bile duct stent changed. And now that's every 6 months they have to do that because I've had that where it gets all clogged up and gets infected. And then I go into sepsis. And then I end up like spending a week in the hospital. So, and as far as changing anything, I never really changed much in my life. I probably ate worse. I started eating more bacon and drinking more beer if I could, And I kind of went the opposite direction. I figured if I die, I don't want to go down with a bottle of carrot juice. You know what I mean? If I can eat, let me have an ale and a good Reuben or something, But yeah, I was always pretty, like Beck says, always pretty much the same. The only thing that really changed after this diagnosis was my physical decline, like Becky said. And I think that's what's hardest on everybody, and everybody in here knows that, watching your own body or the people you love just step by step starting to decline. So, but I'm so grateful just to be here through all the twists and turns over these last 13 years. It's been interesting.
You're amazing, Ken.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely amazing. And I can see the love between the two of you too, that's been a huge factor, that the two of you can laugh together like that, even telling the story of everything you both have gone through, that you guys are right there shoulder to shoulder and able to almost laugh about really tough times. And again, that lots of meaning and purpose in your life, Ken. And then again, you also being somebody who's, giving back to society too. As much as, you've had to endure so much, you're really actively involved with PanCan and able to do the lobbying and, really stepping up to the plate to make things better for other people too. And, it sounds like you've always had gratitude, even though all these treatments have been so harsh and difficult, knowing that it is helping to keep you going and that you have so many reasons for still wanting to be here. All those great, and a great grandchild now too. Wow. Congratulations. Yeah. And, when Becky just described you as a positive person, so your spirit of positiveness is probably, I'm guessing, really helped you get through some of the hardest of times. And, 2012, that's pretty remarkable.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. And I like how you roll with the punches. That really says a lot. That the punches keep coming, and having the kind of resilience that you have too. I've been noticing a tremendous amount of resilience in all of you that have been speaking, but that having that kind of resilience just keeps you, as you just said a few minutes ago, rolling with the punches, and having that inner, you got that inner drive and self-confidence in yourself that helps keep guiding you to what do I do next, and what do I do next, and what do I do next, and what do I do next. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you both.
Listening.
Thank you so much, Ken. All right, we will switch over to Talia and Maureen. Let's find Talia. All right, there you are, Talia. I guess. Okay.
All right, our next speaker is Maureen. She is a survivor of leiomyosarcoma and has been cancer-free since 2005. While her illness does not define her, it's what brings her to the conversation this evening.
Well, after listening to the 3 or 4 people, there's a lot of things that you all have said that run on the same veins. My boys were 8.5 years old and 11. And the first night I got a phone call on a Friday night in 2005 from the doctor and said, you need to call a gynecological oncologist on a Friday night. And my husband said, well, you're a survivor, so you're fine. Okay, which Joe is always a half full or a half empty, and I'm always more of the half full. So I make a phone call and I call the doctor's office, and the nurse said, well, everybody here has cancer that's calling for an appointment. There's not an appointment for 3 or 4 months. I was crushed because everything being so surreal. And then I called my gynecologist who had performed the hysterectomy, and he said, go to the yellow pages. So when they told me to go to the yellow pages, I just said, okay, fine. I shelved it and figured there's another day if I need to address any of that hostility or anger, but it's not going to come anywhere near me. So my husband did some investigating with MD Anderson, Sloan Ketterly, and Dana Farber, and had 2 opinions. And we found Dr. Gregorio Delgado at West Penn Hospital. And my husband had said to him, so will you work with MD Anderson? And would you communicate with them? And he said, why? They call me. I train those people. He was the most incredible doctor from MD Anderson that he had trained there. And this Dr. Gregorio Delgado, I shared my dreams with him. I wrote my journal. Every doctor that I touched, I made sure that if they were touching me, I had to touch them. That I figured that my body was my body. And if they were coming on to me, I needed to be a part of that. I found tapes underneath my bed from Dr. Bernie Siegel. They were cassette tapes in 2005. Cassette tapes. I mean, who listens to cassette tapes now? And they were for faith, hope, and healing. And I would draw pictures and post them on the refrigerator. My husband would come home and say, who did the drawings? I would go to my radiation and chemo dressed to the nines because I thought, you know what? I'm going to make myself feel as good as possible, even if you felt like shit. And I was also very fortunate to have a lot of very good support, mental support, physical support, friends, family. I don't think I went to one of my radiation treatments, but 2 on my own. And I taught myself, as the one woman had just said, I taught myself Reiki, and I did Reiki on my body daily. I did meditations. I listened to Deepak Chopra, Andrew Weil. I had dreams that I would write my dreams down, and the most prolific one I had was of a phoenix, and awaking in the morning and realizing that the phoenix had appeared to me and burst. And then I knew innately that that sense of peace and that healing energy. And it was pretty incredible how, in going through all these treatments, and then, I only had a couple chemos because they just weren't working. My body wasn't receiving. But long short of it, I'm just very, very fortunate that, 20 years ago, how I had been exposed. And when we were younger, in the 80s after college, I'd taken this class, Silva Self Mind Control, from Sister Matilda Kelly at La Roche College. And it was helping you to utilize your brain, your mind, your body, emotionally, physically. And she always would state the fact that you need to nourish yourself and fill your buckets. It's kind of like a savings account that you have to build that up so that when you need it, you have it. And I'm also very fortunate that I had a very good foundation in my faith, that I was going to Mass, I think, every morning. And I found I unknowingly had gone to Mass, and there was a healing Mass at St. Alexis, and the priest was there, and he called me up front, and I was so embarrassed, like, you don't want anybody to point out. And it was amazing. I mean, it's like, there are many gifts that we see every day, and we sometimes choose not to see them or pay attention to them. But the more often we pay attention to signs that are sent our way, the more often we are able to act on them. And I was always a pretty good, I cooked a lot, so we never really ate processed foods, and I walk, and I always did yoga. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that I think growing up, we were fortified in believing that you have faith and foundation. And I had some really good doctors and incredible friends. And that's kind of the brief synopsis. And then I never knew about anything with, there was never any help around at this point. In 2005, I didn't know of any place. And then I found they were having some cancer therapy groups. And that's when I met Wendy. Probably 6 months afterwards, that I thought I'd go and check out a meeting. And I only went to a few of them, but it was such a gift to be able to walk in and have a conversation with other people that were in that same environment that you were, that you felt so vulnerable, but you realized that you can't allow your vulnerability to show. And I think that to this day, I went back and I have my Reiki too, and I still do my meditation, and I have runes, and I too have my crystals. And I just am thankful every day that I have the gift of where I am, and that I have my family and friends.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Oh, since 2005, in your journey is another incredible journey, again, of faith and hope and embracing love from so many and giving of your own self. And also I've heard of Silva Mind Control too. I've been doing a bit of that. I have a laundry list a mile long of all different kinds of things that I've been doing through the years. But again, that mind-body connection, and the mind-body connection for healing itself. Again, you tapped right into it.
Right.
Yeah, you really did tap into that. Great.
The good fortune.
Yeah. And then faith, and ending up with that incredible doctor, that even after that angry experience you had, and you were able to release your anger enough that you could push yourself forward, rather than, again, being that container of anger and just like giving up.
Yeah, definitely with the yellow pages. Go to the yellow pages.
But how you found that, I can't remember the name of the doctor, the Italian sounding doctor, but what a difference that made.
Oh, he was a gem. He said, I am who they call
the best. Yeah.
The shoes were polished. The jacket was starched. People, he was just so meticulous that he emanated this incredible energy that just.
And having a medical team that we really have trust and we believe in, that is very empowering. You know, empowering yourself again. That was one of the ways you empowered yourself, was by getting involved with that particular doctor. So, you know, it is, you know, as you said, being able to wake up every day and just be able to have gratitude and appreciation for waking up that day, and be able to continue. You've got all these different tools and foundations that you've already got right now, and just to continue to use them to live a full, thriving life.
Right.
Is really beautiful, Maureen, really beautiful.
All right,
That's
thank
the question,
you.
Jen.
We were gonna try to hold the questions till the end, Al. Unless you have something in the chat. If you want to put something in the chat. We're gonna bring on Talia, and then we have hold on, Amy is next, so I gotta find Amy. There you are. Okay.
All right. Amy will be 52 years old next month and has lived with chronic carcinoid cancer for 43 years. It first started in her lung when she was 9 and metastasized to her brain at 21.
All right, Amy.
Hi, guys. Oh, I have so much. And I got this brief. I had this scripted, but everybody touched me, so okay. I'm a former English teacher. So this is my odyssey. It is not my cancer journey. This is an odyssey, just like Homer wrote. So bear with me. You're getting the Clark notes, okay? Instead of the Cliff notes, Clark notes. For me, I was 9 when I had half my lung removed. So I have no real memory of life before that. Everything's been cancer. So I had a lot to overcome when I was right after my surgery. My parents' insurance kicked me off for pre-existing conditions. And so I went from 1982 to 2005 with nothing but Medicare and Medicaid. I got private insurance, and then I got kicked off again because when I fell and hit my head, I didn't know at the time. They found something. So I got kicked off my insurance, and I had no clue. For like 2 years after having all these headaches, I said, I woke up and I said to my then husband, something just doesn't feel right. I had a dream laying in a hospital bed with a sheet on. There's something wrong. So my ex-father-in-law was a CEO for a clinic, a health clinic. So I had that privilege. It's not fortune in my eyes. I had the privilege of that. My parents advocated when I was a child to get me. So, but there was no scans between there. Because we didn't have insurance. My dad was a Methodist minister and a spy, but you know, I had no health insurance, so there was nothing that could be done. So I lived my childhood normal. I played sports. I did my thing. And after it went to the brain, I went from Pittsburgh Children's Hospital. That's where I had my lung surgery. And then I went down. I was living in West Virginia. If you hear that Southern accent, I've lived in 5 or 6 states. So we went down to UVA, and I had Dr. John Jane, who did the surgery on Christopher Reeves after he broke his neck. World renowned. I fired him. he got security called on him because it was just not a good place. And his team was not good. They gave me 6 weeks, and it was a bad time. So that was my obstacle, overcoming bad gaslighting, not having insurance. My mother, there was, it was hard. My parents struggled. So, but they did the best we could. And I graduated high school a year early and graduated college a year early after 2 sets of brain surgeries. And I've actually had Gamma Knife down at UVA. I can't remember the doctor's name, but he was one of the first doctors to do Gamma Knife in the United States. And I've had it in the brain, the lung, the thyroid, the spine. Back in 22, I got the prognosis of 12 months from the doctor that was not my doctor. So I have fired in my lifetime 4 doctors. My parents fired 1 doctor. So you have to advocate for yourself. The doctor, when I was 9, told my parents that I inhaled a peanut. I had a peanut allergy. So we kind of knew that that wasn't accurate. And the doctor didn't believe me. And so, you just have to educate yourself. And when you do that, you have to do it to your level and to your comfort level. And then you have to educate everybody else. And then you do that for your comfort level. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Oh, Amy, you're muted again.
My phone's been acting up.
You're back.
Okay, my apologies. But for me, it was just my obstacles were human beset to me. There's nothing like going through your entire life with no insurance with cancer on your back. I mean, so I'm an advocate for healthcare. I call my representatives, I send emails, I send postcards, I sign petitions, I have protested. That's where I lay with my stuff. So, I'm always changing with what I have in front of me. And a lot of times it's just, my husband's a great guy. I have a great support system, but don't hesitate to restructure your support system. That's what I've done. I've had to pull people in and pull people out, leave tools along my journey and pick them up. It's just adapting, persevering, and just being my own main character, my own hero in my story. And I think that's what everybody needs to do, and do it at your own pace. And I'm sorry I was not better tonight. I didn't expect it to become emotional tonight. So that's my story.
Well, it's great that you're allowing yourself to be emotional. It's really, rather than apologizing, be proud that you can allow yourself to feel your feelings and be able to express it like that to all of us.
Yeah, I mean, hearing everybody's story really touched me. Kara's story really touched me. It's just, thank you to everybody. So
yeah, I've been having goosebumps myself all night long ever since we started. So I can kind of guess what it must be like for you too.
For me, it's odd because I'm a sarcastic. I live with that dry sense of humor. I'm a Monty Python girl through and through. Okay. So this was out of my realm, but I hope I adapted okay to you guys.
Oh yeah. And again, you becoming such an advocate, for people who you've had your own life experience. on this odyssey that you've been on since you were, what you said, 9 years old. Yeah. And the fact that you, again, as with almost everybody we're talking about right now, everybody in this group has been giving of themselves, finding meaning and purpose. And how can I use this odyssey or journey or whatever you want to call it that we've been on? How can I really use this to add something to the world? And you've been a big advocate that way. So give yourself a lot of accolades, for that too. And the thing that all of you, Amy, you included, the resilience that you all have is just remarkable. And that, I think, is one of the things that's been keeping you all, and you too, Amy, going. I mean, with all those different surgeries that you had and not having insurance, I can't imagine how scary that whole must have been for you and your family, but somehow you got through it. And 43 years later, here you are. Ooh, wow. I think you could write your own book too. Yeah. Because you've been on quite an odyssey. And you, again, you had to stand up for yourself and advocate for yourself when getting really horrific news from all these different doctors telling us that we don't have long to live, and saying, that's like gaslighting me. I'm not going to stand for that.
Yeah, my ex-husband, when the day I was told I had 6 weeks to live, I was 21 years old. He said to me, I'm going to remarry within 3 months because I can't be alone. So I restructured my support system.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. And that's an important thing that that you did too. And that constantly be evaluating, this particular situation and or person in my life, is this adding to my life or is it taking away from my life? And if it's adding to my life, then, hey, keep going with it. But if you're noticing that it's doing detrimental things to you, reevaluating, is this something I really want to have in my life now? And I think that odyssey that you're on really taught you that big time. So, yeah. So again, thank you too, Amy, for sharing your, what did you say? How many years? 43-year story?
Wow.
Yeah. Wow.
Okay, we are running out of daylight here, so we are going to turn it over to we're going to move to Talia and Karen, who also has just an amazing story. But hold on, let me find her to pin her. There you are.
There's Karen. Okay, I see you.
Okay. All right, go ahead, Talia.
All right, our next speaker is Karen. She'll be our second to last speaker. She has been fighting cancer for 34 years. She was diagnosed in 1991 with chronic lymphocytic leukemia. In 2023, she was diagnosed with the secondary metastatic osteosarcoma, and recently she was also diagnosed with melanoma and squamous cell carcinoma of the lungs.
Well, my story started by accident. I was going in for elective surgery, and when I went in the day before my surgery, my white counts were super high. And they called me and said, you belong in a hospital. You're very, very sick. I'm like, no, I feel fine. They said, well, maybe the lab made a mistake. Come back in at lunch and we'll redo them. They were even higher. So I was hospitalized. My surgery was canceled. And after a month of numerous tests, and finally at the end of the month, it was decided they needed to do a bone marrow biopsy to come up with a definitive diagnosis, because they did not believe what they were coming up with throughout the whole country reviewing my test results. And it was CLL, which is chronic lymphocytic leukemia, which is known as the old man's disease. I was 35 and a woman. So go figure. I have no idea how I ended up with it. We found that out on a Friday. We looked it up in a medical dictionary and were horrified to know that the dictionary said it was fatal. So Monday we called the oncologist. He said, "Oh my God, no, it isn't. It's a chronic disease. You'll probably live a long life and die from something else. It's just something you'll have all your life and you'll have to be monitored." I was stage 0 and was placed on watch and wait. I would go in every 3 months for blood work. And then I was trying to get pregnant. So they said, wait a year. We want to make sure you're stable. And if everything is stable, we will allow you to go ahead and try to have a child again. So I got pregnant in 92 and delivered a healthy baby girl in 1993. From that point on, my goal was to watch my daughter grow up, graduate from high school, graduate from college, and get married. And I'm happy to report that I attended all of those occasions. But then my disease started to progress again. And in 2002, I needed to have a stem cell transplant where they took my stem cells, took them out, cleaned them, and then put them back in. It was at that point in time experimental, but I didn't have any other choices at that time because chemotherapy drugs hadn't been approved yet. So I took a chance, and I was supposed to get 1 to 2 years out of that, but it lasted 7.5 years. And by the time I came out of that, there were some new drugs. So in 2010, they decided that I needed a donor stem cell transplant. None of my friends and family were a match. So we went to the National Bone Marrow Registry. And as luck would have it, I had 3 matches, which is very unusual. One was from overseas, from a country that still had diseases that we have eradicated in the States. So he was eliminated. And then of the 2 left in the States, only one was willing to come in and get tested. The other person must have had something happen in their life and it wasn't a good time. So we went ahead and had him tested, and he was a perfect match. So I had the donor stem cell transplant June 30th of 11. I waited until the end of June so I could see my daughter graduate from high school. But it was a success. But by 2013, I needed lymphocyte transfusion, which had to come from the original donor. Nobody else could donate this. And as luck would have it, when they contacted my donor, he graciously agreed to donate. And he said, leave me on the machine for the full 4 hours and take as many infusions as you can get. If you can freeze what you can't use, they'll be there if she needs them in the future. I used 4 out of the 11. And I've been doing well ever since then. I did undergo 5 more rounds of different chemo after that through 2014. And then I started on one of the first immunotherapy drugs for CLL, which was called ibrutinib. And I did very well on that for 5 years. But then I started to have too many side effects. So they switched me to another immunotherapy drug called Calquence. But the beauty of these immunotherapy drugs is there are far fewer side effects than chemotherapy. But then October 22, I was getting into bed, and when I lifted my leg up, I broke my femur. When I went to the hospital, the surgeon that was trying to do the fix saw some tissue that he didn't like when he went in. So he had a biopsy done, and it came back as a secondary cancer called metastatic osteosarcoma, which is a bone cancer. So I lost my femur, my kneecap, and they had to remove 2 quads. I was in the hospital for 7 months receiving chemotherapy. And my recovery was long because I had a foot injury that wasn't healing. but during one of my routine scans, some suspicious spots were discovered on my lungs. So I was now diagnosed with small cell squamous cell carcinoma in both lungs. And I am currently undergoing treatment for that. I also was diagnosed with melanoma. And I ended up standing up one night and I broke my hip from standing up, and they found that my osteosarcoma had metastasized to the other leg in the hip. So that was successfully treated, and the melanoma has been successfully treated. So right now we're just undergoing treatments for the lung cancer. Throughout my whole history, I've always tried to look forward and never look back, and set goals of things I wanted to achieve, even though I had cancer, and always good goals to, look forward to. I've also tried to help other people that have called me and said, well, how did you handle things? And I don't give any medical advice, but it's pretty much a shoulder to lean on for people when they need to talk. I also like to sew, so I joined a quilting group, and we pick a nonprofit every year, and we will make things for whatever their customers are. For a children's youth home, we made quilts for all their beds. We made placemats for Meals on Wheels. We made lap quilts for a nursing home. Every year, we just try to find another organization in the community to give back to. I enjoy giving back to other people. It gives me a lot of joy. I volunteer at my church. We have a big annual sale every year. I work for that. And give back in any other way, provide meals to people when they need it. But at the same time, so many friends and family have supported me along the way, taking me to treatments when my husband was out of town, bringing meals, childcare. And I'll be forever grateful for all that. And I do have a strong faith. God apparently wants me here and has more things for me to do. So I try to look every day as a new day and another day of possibilities. Don't ever give up. Be an advocate for yourself, like all of us have said. You have to fight for your battles so that you can succeed in fighting your cancer. As you've seen, everybody that's spoken before me it's just wonderful. It's great to hear how many people are out there fighting for themselves. Mm-hmm. That's my story.
Yeah. Wow. Again, just another incredible story. Again, I would say the thing I'm seeing in all of you, the more and more we keep moving from person, is resilience. The incredible resilience in all of you, Karen, you included too, where it's starting way back, having to deal with one thing that then morphed into another thing that then morphed into another thing. And again, having that faith and that really wanting to live and be here, and not only just be here, but to be doing really important things, with your life in terms of your relationships with loved ones, and, getting involved in, even like your quilting group and all the great things you did with that. And just being, a shoulder, for somebody to cry on, or an ear, to listen to other people who experience, because you're authentic. You've been there, done that. Mm-hmm. And so for you to be able to give of yourself that way. And actually, I hate to say it, because I've kind of been doing the same thing through the years. It actually makes me feel good, when you give of yourself that. Yes. And again, that feel good that we get from giving of ourselves. Yeah. Again, it releases all those healing hormones in our body, right, which helps to not only keep us here, but to keep us here well and doing important things in our lives, and never taking a day for granted. Right. That when we wake up in the morning, we think, yes, I'm here. I want to really do something, you know, with my time here.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, I have to use a walker now.
Mm-hmm.
So that was really difficult because we had a 2-story home. And my dear husband built a 1-story home.
You mean he physically did it?
It's wonderful. It's much smaller because we used to be a 3-generation family in that home, and it's just the two of us now.
Uh-huh.
It's in a nice 55 plus community where there's a community center where they have all activities right here. Because I can no longer drive. I haven't been able to drive for 2 years. And that was very isolating at first.
Okay. So what a great relationship you must have with your husband that he would come up with this great life plan to adapt, you know, to living circumstances that you could really be living your lives to the fullest.
Yeah. And we're 5 minutes from my daughter and my son-in-law now, which is nice. And I did forget to mention that for a while before the pandemic, I did use lymphatic massages, which I felt very strongly about.
Mm-hmm.
And I've made some big dietary changes. I've developed kidney disease as a result of all my treatments. So I've eliminated all processed foods.
Mm-hmm.
Now, my husband is vegetarian, so getting lots of vegetables in is easy for us since he's vegetarian. But I think the combination of conventional and holistic treatments has really benefited me. I got involved in yoga through Cancer Bridges during the pandemic. And then I started taking more and more classes through Cancer Bridges. There wasn't anything 34 years ago that I could find.
Mm-hmm.
And having Cancer Bridges now, I did go into a depression when I was diagnosed with the first osteosarcoma diagnosis. That was pretty rough. Being in the hospital 7 months didn't help. So Cancer Bridges is the one that pulled me out of that. And all these classes that they have provided, the support groups, have been a lifeline to me. And I highly recommend people to get involved with anything they think that they can benefit from.
And how nice it is now, too, that we can do the video gathering.
Yeah, the Zoom classes are a godsend for me because I don't drive anymore.
Right, because
my husband's still working. So he's taking me to all these doctors' tests, treatments, you know, then working later in the night. So, you know, last thing I want to do is say, hey, can you take me to a quilting class or that, you know.
So now you can just click and be connected, which is
yes. So
that's fantastic. We are running short of time. So we are going to move on. Thank you, Karen.
You're welcome.
We will we'll get back over to Talia again, which like for some reason I can never find Talia. I don't know why. And then we have I know why it's different when I'm recording, so I apologize. Okay, and then we will find our last speaker, which is Keith. And then if I know we said this would go till 9, or excuse me, 8, not 9. But we can stay for a few minutes if folks are interested in asking questions. And we have to, someone has to win the book, right? We have to pull the book. So we're ready for you, Talia.
Hey, Keith is an 8-year survivor of stage 4 metastatic prostate cancer. He still receives treatment every 3 months for his cancer. Take it away, Keith.
Oh, you're muted.
Oh, you're muted.
There. Okay. After listening to everyone that's here who's told their story, those who just listened, who have a story, and the people from Cancer Bridges who have meant the world to me, going through my personal journey, I am humbled by the stories I've heard tonight. I'll try to keep mine brief. I have a few notes here. It's hard to remember. Some of you are in 30 and 20 years. Mine's 8 years. But I had some unique things happen. I'm 73 years old. I tell people I would not change having cancer, as crazy as that'll say or sound, because I've met the best people in this journey I've ever met in my life. And that's the truth. My best friends, I thank everybody when I go into a hospital, thank them for what they do, whether they're pushing someone in a wheelchair or whatever, because I see a lot of that. I go in every 3 months. I've had a great life, including with fighting this terrible disease. Um, I was 54 years a builder. I was a professional model for about 20 years. I teach now and I do consulting. 2017, I was diagnosed with prostate cancer. I had a biopsy. The biopsy went bad. I had sepsis in E. coli. I was put in the emergency room for 2 weeks. I had to do IVs at home that I had to administer to myself. 2 weeks into me giving myself the IVs, the nurse came in, cleaned the PICC line, and I called that lady that night and I said, I got a chest pain. She said, go to the emergency room. So I did. They gave me a chest x-ray. They put me in a room. They said, your doctor will be up in a few minutes. Waited about an hour. They came up and said, I had lung cancer. Weren't sure where it came from, if it was from the prostate or wherever, but a couple weeks in, I was told that I had lung cancer also besides the prostate cancer. So, trying to say, so the doctor came in and told me that he left, he had an accident, and then I was admitted. And then in April, they attempted to remove my prostate, which should have been a normal procedure. It wasn't. They couldn't remove it. They came out to talk to my wife in the waiting room, and he said the cancer sac was attached to the rectum and colon, and they could not remove it. And they had no idea what they would do for me. And that created, whenever I woke up after that, I was just lost. I had a sister who had died at 33 of cancer, which I helped. But knowing that you have that, it completely changes your thought patterns and everything that you did for other people. It was amazing. So I had the prostate, tried to move the prostate, couldn't. I had the lung, the right lung, the lower lobe removed. That was very successful. They wanted to do radiation. I didn't feel that that was the right thing, so I talked to several doctors, several other professional people. I had built houses for doctors. They told me to go see this person, go see that person, which I did. I elected to go with chemo at the Hillman Center, Dr. Appleman. Just a wonderful person. First day of chemo, well, let me back up. Whenever I said about having the lung cancer, they found it by accident. That shows that sometimes when accidents happen, good things turn out, because they would never have found that if that PICC line hadn't moved, and I didn't go to the emergency room because they weren't looking for it. They just figured prostate cancer. So I started the chemo at the Hillman. And the first day I was in a back room by myself, and I was sitting there, no one's around. They hooked me up to the chemo bottle, and I got to go find someone to sit with. Went down two of the corridors where they had 6 people in a room, and there was a man there with his wife and one other person there. And I went in, I says, can I sit here with all you all? And they said, sure. And the man sitting there with his wife became my best friend. He had melanoma, he had 28 tumors, and he wasn't expected to live at all. He's about 13 years younger than myself. We became best friends, and we talk 2, 3 times a week. He is a pilot now for Southwest. We became supporting each other. He goes in every 6 months. I go in every 3 months because how my cancer is advanced and they couldn't remove it. He equates it to going into a jury trial, that we're waiting for the jury to tell us whether our cancer is back or we're given a reprieve, but we know we got to come back in 3 months, 6 months, whatever it is. That's how he equates it. And I kind of do now. I just had my checkup last Friday, still cancer-free, but the Lupron that I've taken since 2017 and the chemo has caused severe chemo-induced peripheral neuropathy for me. I have fallen about 7, 8 times since July. I just tore my knee all up. I have to have a knee replacement, which I'm not really looking forward to. The chemo neuropathy is actually damaging both legs. So I'm not sure if they'll even want to do that. I haven't met the surgeon yet, but I was told that's what I needed to do. So my journey will continue with that. And it's not nearly as bad as most people talk tonight. I'm still humbled by everybody. So today, what I find myself fighting is the survivorship. We're sent to specialists. They look at a little piece of the pie all the time, and we have to piece it together. We have to find that specialist that's going to maybe guide us to the next one, to the next one. And I'm lucky. I've been able to do that. I met with a neurosurgeon today, told him my story. He says, surgery wouldn't help you because I have spinal stenosis too. He said, you need to see a neurologist and this other type of specialist. So he gave me referrals. Normally it would take about 4 to 6 months to get in to see this guy. I'm very lucky. I got in a week. Just because of people I think that I talk to, I tell them my story honestly and heartfelt. I don't take no for an answer, but I'm very polite when I talk to everyone and appreciate what they do. And I think that helps to get me into the right doctors. I've been with UPMC pretty much the whole journey, just different hospitals and different areas. I have a sign outside my bathroom that reads, let me make sure I get it right. When we're finished with today, tomorrow is a blank slate. It's up to us to make it the best day that we can or whatever we want it to be. For about the last 5 years, whether it rains, snows, the sun's out, I get up, take a picture of the sky, whether the sun's coming up or not, or of a sunset. I put it away every night and I look forward to the next day.
Wow.
I make myself get up and do things. I am still teaching. I taught whenever I had chemo. I was bald. That thing they give you to so you're not so upset. Your stomach's not so upset after chemo. It went off twice when I was teaching, and it just shook my confidence. And I'm up in front of a room. I was totally bald. I had lost 50 pounds, but the people in the class were wonderful. They treated me with such respect. So I look at it from, I guess, the most positive side that I can. I eliminated toxicity in my life that Wendy kind of validated when I first met her, when I became a peep, and she'll appreciate that. But it's as terrible as cancer is and how you feel alone. I cry a lot. I give myself a day to lay on the sofa and feel sick, but I kick myself in the butt and I get up the next day or maybe the next day. I cover up with a warm blanket in front of my fireplace. It's okay to feel that way as long as it doesn't take you over and take you away from tomorrow and the next journey that you have in front of you. I don't have it as bad as most of the people who told their story tonight, but I understand their story like I did not for my kid's sister at 33. But all I can say is thank everybody for telling your story and sharing it. I feel very blessed tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Keith, too. You did so much in your own way of releasing your suppressed emotions and increasing your positive emotions. And when you talked about, I didn't write it down, but I love that quote that you put up by your bathroom door, and that you even have so much gratitude for the little things like the sunrise and the sunset, and you actually take pictures every day.
Every day.
Wow.
I mean, there's nothing sometimes but a cloudy, snowy, rainy sky.
I was going to say
And,
Albany and Pittsburgh probably have a lot in common in terms of how many
yeah,
sunny days we have.
but we have some beautiful
We
sunsets.
have, and
It's
we,
worth
yeah,
getting.
I think the Northeast is fantastic. I mean, for the four seasons, but we won't get into that right now. But the fact that, again, your humbleness again too, and when you are advocating for yourself with getting help, I'm sure that whoever you're dealing with is picking up on your vibe and they want to help you.
They
So
do.
that's why you get help so much faster than probably a lot of other people do. You just give off this vibe probably that you advocate for yourself and you get what you want and what you need. And you also were very intuitive. Also, I picked up, when you were describing the different options that the medical practitioners were giving you, you decided it was your intuition that decided to stay clear, of the radiation and go for the chemo.
Yes.
And then you ended up making one of your best buddies.
Yep, I did.
So yeah. So again, thank you again, Keith, for sharing all of that with us.
Yeah, and those who have families which are supporting you, like everyone's talked, I just did this. I got divorced after my second week of chemo. And it was just not good for either one of us. It was part of my toxicity I had to get rid of. We're friends today. We have a son, no grandkids. You're all lucky if you have grandkids. But we have to create that environment in our lives that are positive and we can move forward. And toxicity will drain the life out of you.
Yeah, and I agree with you. That's something we have control over. We can make choices, what kind of toxicity we want to keep and which things we want. So again, Keith, thank you so much for sharing all that wisdom with us.
My honor. Thank you.
We will turn it over to Wendy.
All right. So, wow, what an amazing evening. How many years ago, 5 years ago, Deborah, you were here and such an inspiration, and number two, just as inspiring, in many different ways, but inspiring. And, just a shout out to all 8 of you. And you all are my peeps. Thank you, Keith. I call you that because there was one time where I was just, talking about people in general. And of course, people know I either call people dear or hun or, whatever. And I named all of my lovely people that are in, our community, my peeps. So Keith is definitely one of my peeps, as well as all of you guys. Your stories are amazing. I know every one of you. I've been with you for a long time. A lot of you I've known, and just amazing people. And that's why Jen and I do this. Just a few words I want to say, and then I'm going to open up for a little bit for questions. But these are the things that popped into my mind as a therapist as well as a human being. Pride, right? Kara, loved that pride. I love that. And that is what I think about with you. I'll never forget we had a metastatic breast cancer conference at Cancer Bridges, and Kara and another one of our members stood up, and I said, how do you get through this? And, and she talked about resiliency, and she talked about, that sense of pride, and, kudos. I love it. Love pride. Hero, Amy, you saying hero, right? Same kind of thing. You have to be your own hero. And that ties into the advocacy piece. That's just important. And you guys know that as a social worker, that's what I, want you all to learn and to, especially now in the world, you have so many options, which is wonderful. And that's why a lot of you are alive, but you have to be able to navigate it and advocate for yourself. So that's great. Humble, right? Being humble. What a wonderful thing. My favorite song is Humble and Kind by Tim McGraw. If you've never heard it, listen to it. I'll be dancing at my boys' weddings to that with them because that's what I want them to be, right? Humble and kind. That's what you all are. Beautiful. Sense of purpose. This is so important, right? And if you don't have a sense of purpose in your life in some way, and it doesn't have to be productive, but indeed, you have to have something where you feel like you're using what you value to make a difference in your own life and others. So find that sense of purpose. And community. That's what we are, right? That's what all of us at Cancer Bridges are so proud that we have created for all of you. You know, it took us a while to, you know, bring our organizations together. And since we have in the last 3 years, we have become a powerhouse community. And I don't say that to brag. I say that because it's true. I feel privileged to work with all of these people I work with there, because we all love what we do. And that's a very rare thing when you talk about an organization. But you guys are a reflection of that on us, because you all are just, as I'm going to steal my Jen's tagline, right? You're all rock stars. And, you know, that's kind of how I'll sum it up. You're all rock stars, whether you're our 8 people, you know, that we focused on tonight, or you're here listening. Because, you know, like Ann said, she was an audience member, you know, back in the day. And now she's one of those rock stars up front and talking. So you all can be those rock stars. So with that being said, from the bottom of my heart, I'm going to open up for questions and answers. And I also shout out to Deborah. Thank you for everything. You're amazing.
Oh, when I said last week to say I'm glad to be here, it's an understatement.